Okay. All right, let's get started. All right, let's get to the new chapter, chapter 4. We got chapter 4 today. Let's take a look. We got chapter 4 today, the 26th, chapter 4 on Wednesday the 28th, and next week, April 2nd. Do you have homework this weekend for this class? Have you ever had homework right before a quiz? No, but I always post study questions to prepare, so you can prepare. So what I'll do after Wednesday is I'll post a bunch of study question answers, problem answers to help you prepare for the quiz. We'll have an in-class on Wednesday, but no homework to do over the weekend. Just prepare for the quiz on Monday after the weekend's over. But look for those posted answers. We're so close to the end. Everybody realize that? We have chapter 4, chapter 5, and then chapter 7. We're never going to make it to chapter 8, most likely. So just 3 more chapters to get through. Woo! I'm the only one that's going to celebrate. All right. So, chapter 4 is all about saving money and savings. Chapter 5 is all about borrowing. Saving, borrowing. Chapter 4, chapter 5. So, saving money. I want to define APY versus APR. Annual percentage yield is what the Y is. Annual percentage yield is always used when talking about investing, making a return on your investment. This one, APR, which we're going to talk about a lot in chapter 5, annual percentage rate is always used when it's talked about borrowing money, loans. So the Y is making money from investing, the R is paying money from borrowing. That's the difference. These calculations allow you to convert whatever interest you made from an investment or interest you paid on a loan for different periods of time to its annual equivalent. So you can compare apples to apples. Annual equivalent are these calculations are all about. This APY calculation is, a lot of people find this one kind of hard. So I want to make sure you know where the calculation's at and the right one, because there's 2 of them in there. So I'm going to page 132. In the middle of the page, you have all these calculations from the chapter. The top one has it right there at the very top, APY, annual percentage yield. That's the formula. This APY, which is only used if the investment was for exactly a year, 12 months on the nose. But a lot of people accidentally use this when there's a question on a quiz or your final exam instead of the correct one at the top. Circle the one at the top, the harder one. Because the one at the top, the APY up there, is the one you must show that you can calculate in your paper for Investopedia. So I'm going to do an example. Let's pretend, I got to find someone's Investopedia here. Where is the linkage? Who's this? 11,000, here, Britt. 11,090 at the end of today. So, whoops. Let's get back there. 11,090. So let's say, I'm rounding it to the nearest dollar. 11,090. Let's say the game just ended, and this is the portfolio value. Now let's go back to the formula. The formula says, I even forget that 100 multiplied by 100. I do that at the end. Let's do everything inside those parentheses. 1 plus interest is at the top. That's the amount of gain or loss in your portfolio. Do not make that a negative number if you ended up losing money in your portfolio for this paper, for this project. Put whatever the amount of money is that you gained or lost as a positive number in the numerator. In her case, it's a gain, if it were ending today hypothetically. And how much did we all start with? Do you remember? 10,000. So the gain there is how much money gained? $1,090, right? $11,090 minus what she started with. We all are going to be subtracting $10,000 from wherever you end to find either the amount of loss or gain. So that's the numerator. $1,090 is the word interest is the amount of gain or loss, is as a positive number. Divided by the amount of money called principal is what everybody started with. So in this case, $10,000. So there's that part of it right there. But we got to do that first. We'll do the division, and this will end up with a decimal of some kind, and then we add it to 1. So, let me get my calculator. I'm going to take $1,090 divided by 10,000. I already know what this is going to be. Point. So this is now 1 plus 0.109. All right, so we're at that step in between the parentheses. Now we're going to take that number and add it to 1. So now this equals 1.109. I'm putting parentheses around it because we put it to an exponent. That's that part right there. It says 365 divided by the days, and the words say in the term. What that means is however many days the investment took place. In this case, you got to go by the first day of the game. Whether you invested your money or not, it was invested, but it was just in cash. The first day of the game, we all should be using approximately the same amount of days. Whatever the date was the game started to the date the game ended, which was the 12th of February or April. We just saw the game's ending. I don't remember the date that it started. Do I still have that screen up? I don't. I have to go back to the game rules. So, started the 10th. Let's just pretend that's, whoops. If it started the 10th, it's ending the 12th, that's almost exactly 3 months. I would literally count the days. But I'm going to use 92 days, just hypothetically, just for the sake of this. Matter of fact, I know there's less days than February, so I'm just going to use 90 days. 365 days over 90 days. If these are both in days, that's fine. If this is in 3 months, then as long as the top is 12 months. The top has to represent a year, whether it's months, days, quarters, semi-annuals, whatever. And the bottom represents how long you've had the investment. And if they're both in days, if one's in days, they both have to be in days. If they're in months, this would be like 12 months over 3 months. Then they both have to be in months. But the numerator represents a year, period. The denominator represents the length of time the investment took place, the whole time of the game. So now I take 365 divided by 90, so 365 divided by 90 equals 4.0555, so 1.109 to the power of, I forgot, 4.0555, 5555. There it is. Now I'm going to, look, I'm putting that right here. I'm going to use all those 5s. I'm putting that right there. So now I'm taking 1.109 to the exponent of 4.05555555 equals, this equals 1 point, here we go, 5, 2, what's the next digit? 1 was the one after that, a 3. I'm leaving it right there. Let's go back to the formula, see what we do next. There we go. The next part of the formula says, now subtract what you just calculated, 1 back out of it. We put the 1 in, now take the 1 back out. Minus 1 leaves us with 0.521. Now, turn it into a percentage by multiplying it by the 100 that you see at the beginning of the formula. I'm moving the decimal 2 places, and this is 52.1% APR or Y? Y, because this is an investment. I converted this person, Bria, if this game were ended today, she made a little over 10%, almost 11% of her money. But this game was not a whole year. So you had to convert it to its yearly equivalent. If she were making 10, almost 11%, this was like 3 months. Each of the 3 months, all the way for a whole year, that'd be like 4 of them. But compounding, which this all this formula takes into consideration, that's the same as making 52% a year, APY. Now, I want to make sure you realize how unbelievable that is. If that money were sitting in a savings account at the bank for a whole year, we might make 1%. And this is making the equivalent of 52%. So you can see why this calculation, so you can see reality compared to, wow, what if I would have had that money in a bank? Or what if I would have put it in a certificate of deposit? You know, how well did I do? And then you should always compare on investments to how well the overall market did. So we'll get into that on Wednesday, where we're going to compare how your portfolio did to the overall market by using the change in the Dow index. We're going to find what the Dow was at when this game began, what the Dow's at when the game ends, find that difference, and calculate the APY for the Dow, and see if we beat it or not. That's what this is going to do. That's where we're heading. This is the hardest part for a lot of people on their paper. But take good notes. I'm going to demo this again before your papers due, because you need to have this. This is worth a lot of points on your paper. It's a big portion of it, where you're calculating your annual equivalent had everything kept going after this game ended. If you could keep it up.
Kind of a weird question, but with the paper, like, what does it all entail? What's all entail?
I'm going to post instructions. It's going to list everything in there, and but I'm going to get rid of some stuff. I want to make it shorter. I want to try to make it to where you can have a cover page and less than 1 page of typed story, and then maybe less than a half a page of calculations. And that's the whole paper. Everybody right now is going, great, I can do it the night before it's due. Yeah. I know that's normal. I didn't do it till the night before.
Do we get points off if that number is really low?
No. You get points off for being in last place.
Okay.
But it's not that much.
Place, but only in the last place.
No. Everybody loses points for not being in top 10. If you're in 1 through 10, you lose 0 points. If you're in 11 through 20, you lose a half of a point. If you're in place, a half a point, that's not even a grade. You went from 100 to a 99.5 out of 100. Stop. This doesn't even hardly affect your grade. If you're in 21st place through 30th, you lose 1 point. So now you're down to 99. Okay, if you're in, where did I leave off? If you're in 31st through 40th, you lose 1.5 points. And then I stop like at 4 points. As soon as we get to 4, nobody can lose more than 4 or something like that based on what place you're in. Except for dead last, that should be an extra half point, don't you think? Because you worked hard at being at dead last. You should lose an extra half a point for all that work. No? All right, just thought I'd check. That hardly has an effect your grade. You don't make a transaction in a calendar month, you're losing like 8 points. That's what affects your grade. So I wouldn't worry about what place you're in. I'd worry about, I make a March transaction? And am I going to make sure to remember to do an April transaction before the game ends on the 12th? Everybody hear that? You have to do a transaction for March and April. So right after April 1st, when's your quiz? April 2nd? So right after the quiz, you only have like 8, 9 days, and some of those are weekends. You only have probably like 6 trading days to get your April transaction in before the game ends. Don't hurt your score. That's how you'll kill your score, is not doing that. This calculating this right here, this APY on your portfolio is worth like 10 points. You don't do this, that kills your grade. You know, what place you're in barely affects your grade. The paper's all about, don't give me a reason to take points away. Everybody starts at 100, and then I start reading it, and then, you know, you break my heart as I start taking points off. So don't give me a reason to take points off. That's all I want. I want a paper I can read and have no reason to take points off. That's what I want. And you'll see in the directions how easy it is to give me a paper like that. APY, we learned how to calculate it. All right. I want to talk about line of credit. Slide 5. We've got to go back to the PowerPoint. I want to make sure you know what this is. When you first graduate from college, and you're going, wow, I'm just starting the process of saving money, and you don't have your emergency fund yet. Remember, that's your first savings goal, emergency. You say, how many months would it take me to find a new job? Right now, you guys lose a job. Some of you have like very little rent, or you're living with somebody else, like your parents or something. You have no rent. You know, you don't have. You know, a lot of you have expenses, but not as much expenses as you have in your future. You're going to have a lot more expenses. You're going to own a house. You're going to have house insurance. You're going to have property taxes. You're going to have a car with a car payment and car insurance. You're going to have kids. Unbelievable how expensive that would be. Not that I have kids to know. Because I was too selfish. Did I just record that? Okay. But you will. You're going to have kids. Everything's going to be expensive, and you need that emergency fund. So what I always suggest to people when you first graduate is, go to your local bank or credit union and establish a relationship. Get a savings account established. Have your direct deposits go. My first job out of college, I lived in Ohio, didn't know a single soul. Got a bank account open. You know, my paychecks were being, I don't even remember if direct deposit existed back then, but if they would, I have a direct deposit. I'm establishing a relationship. You know, I saved enough money to even open up a certificate deposit at that bank. I think it was called Old Kent down in Ohio or something like that, if anybody remembers the name of those banks. And you won't have the ability to start an emergency fund right away because you just got your first job, but you're taking on these brand new expenses. One of the first things I took on when I graduated is I had a really nice apartment. It's a townhouse, my first one out of college, and it wasn't cheap, so I had big rent. My other expense is I had a new car. I got tired of having to put a pencil in the carburetor and got a new car when I graduated and had a real job. So I had a car payment. And you have responsibilities, so it's more important to make sure and start that emergency fund as quickly as possible because you never know when the emergency is going to come. And you have no income coming in, but the expenses are still there. So, when you establish a relationship with whatever bank whatever town you end up moving to for this great first job, open up a line of credit. It costs you nothing. You have to fill out a little paperwork. No fee, nothing. You open up a line of credit. Maybe it's only for $5,000 or $10,000. It does nothing. It's just sitting there. You apply for it, you're approved, the money's sitting there if you need it. They even give you like a little checkbook with some checks. And you're getting charged nothing. But if the emergency happens and you don't have your emergency fund yet, you can write a check out of this line of credit to survive until you get that next job. And you only need this for that first year or two while you're saving for that emergency fund. And once you have the emergency fund, you'll never use this because you have your emergency fund to cover things like losing your job unexpectedly. But this is a great backup tool when you first graduate to have that emergency fund. Don't wait till the emergency to get it. Because if you are not working and you go, oh, I need a line of credit because I'm not working right now, you're not getting the line of credit. You get the line of credit while things are good, and it's already been approved. And when you get into a situation where you lost your job, it's still there. You've already been approved for it, and you can utilize it to survive while you're looking for that next job. But you've got to apply for it before you lose a job. It's while you're working, you'll get approved for it. Line of credit is a great tool, again, those first few years out of college, so you have a backup plan in case an emergency happens. Especially when I talk you into going to get that first house, maybe only like within the first few years after graduation. Get that first house, and then now you're taking out a lot of responsibility because you're still going to have a house payment, property taxes, and house insurance if you were to lose your job, but you have this in place just in case. Right now, we're in what's called an employees market, meaning there's more jobs than employees out there. It's a rare thing. It's a great position to be in to graduate at a time where there's a lot of jobs out there right now. But it's not always that way. Our economy goes up and down. So, you know, right now, you graduate right now, you're working your first year at this new job, you didn't realize this company was going to go bankrupt, you lose your job only after a year, but you went ahead and bought a house, you've got a new car, you've got all these new expenses you've never had before, you're going to be happy you have this in place. Right now, it may only take 3 to 4 to 5 months to get a new job to replace the one, but 5, 10 years from now, that could go up to it taking 12 months to find a replacement job. I would say back in 2009, 2010, it was taking people almost a year and a half to be able to secure a job that was equivalent to the kind of money they were making before they lost their job. And 500,000 people were losing good jobs every month after the financial crash for several months. Think about that, 500,000 every month losing their jobs for a while. So anyway, that's a backup plan. That's what line of credit's all about. We're going to decisions based on interest rates, which is slide 7. You have a question in your future for sure about this, because this is pretty important. If I said to you right now, hey, our interest rates have been changing lately since this class started, and it looks like our future has interest rates changing. Matter of fact, interest rates change slowly all the time. But if you had to take hard-earned money, if I said to you, you have to pull $100 out of your account right now, and you have no choice but to bet it on either in the next 12 months, whether interest rates will be going up or going down. There's no in the middle. You either have to pick up or down. Where would you put your $100 right now? What, I heard it. What'd you say?
I said rising.
Rising. Anyone else? No one else wants to take a guess?
I would say down.
Just because? No. Interest rates have been going up since this class has started, pretty dramatically actually. Back in January, the average 30-year mortgage, fixed rate mortgage, was below 4%, and now it's above 4%. Our Federal Reserve has raised the prime rate, which is where everything starts. Banks borrow at prime, they lend it out at a higher rate, they make the difference. Companies use that, they lend to other companies, somebody's making the difference, and rates go like that. Every time the Federal Reserve raises rates, which they have done 3 times in the last year and a half, I think, already, the ripple effect is all the other rates go up. Getting a car loan rate will go up a little. Getting a house loan rate will go up a little. Credit card rates, if you're paying interest on them, go up a little. It's a ripple effect all the time. And so, Federal Reserve has already announced that they're planning on raising rates again before the end of the year, maybe even twice before the end of this year. That announcement is basically saying, hey everybody, expect rates to go up. They're literally telling you, we're going to be raising rates, causing the ripple effect for everybody's rate to go up. If you're a saver, it's not bad news though. Your savings account at a bank account, which was only earning 0.5% last year, maybe up to a 1% by the end of this year. And if rates keep going up, from a saver's point of view, your savings account at a bank or credit union will go from 1% to 1.5%. And before the financial crash, you could have your money in a bank account earning 4% in a safe savings account. 4% is unbelievable right now to even get in anything that's safe. So that's how much interest rates have changed over the last several years. Here is how you make good financial decisions based on what you think the directional interest rates are going to go. If you had to, you graduate from college right now, let's say today, and you're in a situation where you've been working your job for a couple months and you're ready to take a new car loan. You're not going to buy a new car because you've learned, but you can get a loan for that 1 to 2-year-old car that we talked about in class. When you go to get that loan, it gives you advice right here as to whether you should get a long-term loan or a short-term loan based on the direction in which interest rates are going to go. Right now, here's our economic situation. Interest rates are heading up. So if you're thinking about borrowing money, take advantage of today's low rates and make that loan long-term. Especially if you're going to hold that loan to the end of the term. So if you're thinking about taking out a 24 or 36-month auto loan, go for the 60 or 72. Because rates are only going to go up. So you might as well take advantage of the low rate. If you can hang on to the car for 60 or 72 months, a new loan in 60 to 72 months are probably going to be significantly higher than it is today, and that's the advantage of taking out the long term. If you were going to get a house loan and you're thinking about a 15-year or 20-year compared to a 30-year, you would want the 30-year because interest rates are heading up. And you may only be in this house for 10 years. So you want to take advantage of the lower rate now. Some people go, oh, what if you ever heard of a balloon on a loan? A balloon means I got a 30-year loan with a 5-year balloon. That means you have to pay it off in 5 years or refinance. Well, if interest rates are on their way up, that would be a bad decision because interest rates will probably be higher in 5 years when you go to refinance. It will cost you more money. So don't get the 5-year balloon. Instead, take the 30-year fixed rate, knowing interest rates are going to go up, and allow it to take advantage of the low rate now. From a savings point of view, that's if you're borrowing money. Long-term, taking advantage of lower rates now because rates are going up. Now, on the other hand, if you're a saver and you're making investment decisions, you want to make those decisions to be short-term because you'll make more on your money when that investment matures and you reinvest it because interest rates are heading up. Let me say that again. If I were looking at, and we're about to talk about, or did we talk about certificate of deposits? We haven't yet. Certificate of deposits, where you go into your bank or credit union and they say, hey, if you let us hang on to some money for 12 months, we'll pay you this much. If you let us hang on to it for 24 months, we'll pay you a little more each year at a higher rate. How about 36 months? We'll even pay you a higher rate. This is what savers do. They put it in certificate of deposits to get higher rates than just leave it in a savings account. Well, if you knew interest rates are going up, that bank is going to offer higher rates on the new CDs as time goes by. So you want to pick a short-term CD so that when it matures, you renew it at a higher rate. For example, if you took $1,000 and you put it into a CD that's paying 1% for 12 months, or $1,000 in a CD that's paying 1.2% per year, this is APY, meaning the what it pays per year, but you have to commit it for 24 months. This is the choice you want, even though it's a little lower interest rate. Because what you're betting on is when that matures, you're going to reinvest it into a new CD and you might go with 12 months again. But guess what? Now that 12 months will go by and Federal Reserve raised interest rates twice and the ripple effects taking place, that second year you're able to get a CD now for 1.5%. That's why you want to make, if you went with this decision, you're making 1.2% the first year, 1.2% the second year. If you went with this decision, you're making 1% the first year, interest rates went up, now you're making 1.5% the second year. And usually the change is really more drastic than that. Usually the interest rates go up at 0.25%, 0.25 each step along the way. So they just raised, Federal Reserve raised overall interest rate, prime rate, 0.25 a couple weeks ago. The ripple effects already started. I can see home loans already have gone up about 0.25. Their next two are going to be probably another 0.25 and another 0.25. So by the end of this year, overall interest rates could be up about 0.5%. If you notice, I'm saying a year goes by, you're looking at making an extra 0.5% on your savings. And you want to take advantage of that, so you go with shorter term. So let me review. If you think interest rates are going up and you're going to borrow, you want to borrow long term to take advantage of low rates now. If you're investing, you want to invest short term to take advantage of higher rates later. And if you think interest rates are going down, it's the exact opposite. You want to borrow short term to refinance at lower rates later, and you want to invest long term because you don't want to have to reinvest at a lower rate later. You want to take advantage of the higher rate now. That's if interest rates will be heading back down. This is the philosophy, exact opposite of that one. Your question on a future quiz or final is going to say, hey, you got $1,000, you're looking at two CDs, one's for 12 months, one's for 36 months. Interest rates are on their way up. Which would be the better choice, knowing interest rates are on their way up? That would be the type of question you might see. Go.
Okay, so you said that interest rates just were raised by the government?
Yes.
Does that affect student loans too at universities?
Some of them are fixed. If it's a variable, it will fix it. It will affect it. Any variable loans get affected by this increase by the Federal Reserve and the ripple effect. Absolutely. But I think most student loans are fixed rates where it's not going to change no matter what happens. I think. I don't know. Anybody else have experience with their student loans yet? Know about if the rate's fixed?
I think you're just about to get your loan. Like,
Is it? Or which kind? I know there's Stafford, subsidized, non-subsidized. Parent Plus, I don't even know if that still exists, subsidized, non-subsidized, it depends on the loan, but I believe a lot of them are fixed rates where that doesn't matter. I don't think the interest rate changes once you have the loan, I think. All right, so there's how to make good decisions based on, borrowing money and investing money when it comes to the time of money because of the direction interest rates are going. And we happen to be at a time where they're going up. All right, money market fund versus money market accounts. We're going to slide 12. We had that mutual fund chapter. And I told you that all these mutual fund companies, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, Vanguard, I said they're equivalent to having a savings account. It's called a money market fund. Do you remember me telling you about that? It's like the same thing. You may only make about 1% a year in it because it's just like being in a savings account at a bank or credit union, except it's not insured. It's just you're hoping, the finance company, the investment company you're with doesn't go bankrupt, which, the odds are slim because they're so huge. But those are called money market funds, and they're not insured. Money market accounts exist at banks and credit unions, which are very similar to money market funds. The underlying investments, which are usually treasury bills, treasury notes, other jumbo seed certificate deposits somewhere, are the underlying investments that the interest is going to these money market funds, which go to everybody who have their money in the funds. At a bank or credit union, they're called money market accounts. If a money market account, if you put money in there at a bank or a credit union, it's insured. But if you put the money in a money market fund, where's my fund, at a financial institution, it's not insured. That's the difference you got to make sure you realize. Even though they're almost the exact same. Because one was through a bank or a credit union, financial institution that has insurance through the federal government. Either it's called the FDIC, Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, which is the federal government insurance, or it's called I don't see it on there, NCUA, which is the National Credit Unions Association Insurance, which is the same exact insurance. And it's only if your money's at a bank or a credit union is it insured. And I told you the experience I had. I had money I saw an investment opportunity. It was a bank in California. I put $10,000 into a CD there, and I'm watching TV months later, and all of a sudden I see on the news that people are lining up around the corner at every branch of this bank in California because they're going bankrupt. And I realized it was the money where I just invested. And I'm on the phone as fast as I can, and all I'm getting is a recording. No matter what number I find for this bank in California, I'm getting recording. And even the name changed. It may have been Ally, but Ally still exists, but let's say it's Ally. Instead of being, you have reached Ally Bank, now it says, you have reached Federal Ally Bank, meaning the federal government just took it over. It says, if you have money on deposit here, please contact the FDIC, and their number is. So I call that number, and another recording saying, if you have money at Ally Bank, we will be contacting you, leave a message or write us and tell us your account number or something like that. So I did that. It took a while. They would send a letter saying, don't worry, you're insured, blah, 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 and then another month went by maybe, and I get a check in the mail. Not only did the federal government insure the money for everybody at that bank or credit union, but they paid the interest that accumulated while you're waiting to get your money back because of the situation. That's how good the insurance is. That's why I want to point this out. Had I had that money in a money market fund that wasn't at a bank or a credit union, and Fidelity, I can't imagine it going bankrupt, but let's pretend it did, everybody loses. There's no insurance. That's it. Your money's gone. You took the risk. You were invested in the market. You were invested in mutual funds that's invested in the market.
So why were people lining up around the corner and calling?
They knew that bank was going bankrupt, and everybody wanted to get in there and get their money out. It was like a run on money, which even a rumor of a bank going bankrupt, when everybody takes their money out, it causes it to go bankrupt. Just a rumor could do that. I don't know what was the initial thing that started everything, but people reacted like, oh my God, I got money in there.
But if they knew that they were insured, why did they?
That's the thing. Some people don't believe they're insured, and some people are like, but it will take me this much time to get that money, and I need that money. I was just very fortunate I didn't need the money. And it did take a long time to get it. But those who rely, like if this is your checking account you live on every day, that's why they're getting in line. They're going, I need that money. I can't wait for the insurance to pay me 4, 6 weeks later. I need that money. So they're getting in line saying, before you run out of money, I want mine. And they get in line and go up there. And it's called a run. Our whole financial institution would go collapse if everybody, oh, I heard a rumor, I got to go to, what's the closest bank here? I don't know. Citizens Bank doesn't even exist anymore, does it?
I have Citizens.
Does it still exist? Okay, if Citizens used to be all over Flint. Genesee County had Citizens branches everywhere. And if all of a sudden a rumor started that they're going bankrupt and people go, wait a minute, I have my paycheck go there, I need that money, I got to pay my bills. If we wait for the insurance, everybody would be going to every single branch trying to take their money out. And if Citizens had to take all their money and give it to everybody who wants their money, they have no choice but to go bankrupt, because the only way then they could run their business is to have to borrow, and they can't borrow because now they have no money. So a rumor can cause a financial institution to go bankrupt, just by everybody wanting their money out. How banks make money is the savers are depositing. The bank is paying them interest, let's say 1 or 2%. The bank uses the depositor's money to lend it to someone else at 5, 6, 11%. And that's how they make their money. They're paying the savers a low interest, charging the borrowers a higher interest, and the spread, the difference, is the money the bank keeps, and that's how they make money. It's all about, and if the money that they have from the savers is no longer there, and they can't lend it out, they have no revenue. There was a question, go ahead.
So if there is a bank that's going to basically cash out and go out of business, is it just better if everybody collectively keeps their funds together so it can still flow?
No matter, it's kind of better, but you'll never be able to get that to happen. There's too many people who have money in the bank that live from check to check, that have no choice but to try to get their hands on that money. And if this happens to you, you could be in another state. You guys, you could have just graduated, you're just starting to make money, you don't have your emergency fund, and you need that money. If it's the same bank you have the line of credit set up with, you just lost your line of credit too, because that bank's going to go out of business. So I don't know what the backup plan is. I'd have more than one bank account is what I would do. Speaking of the insurance, let's go into more detail on that insurance. FDIC and NCUA. I'm going to slide 14. I want to point out what this means right here. Every person who has accounts at that bank or credit union is insured up to $250,000. Now, I want to make sure, you're going to say, oh, I'll never have $250,000 at a bank. Why worry about going over that? Here's scenarios where people have gotten burned. They have a parent who's getting old. And for some reason that parent has, I don't know, I got to pick a big number. I got to think of the scenario. Let's say it's $480,000 in an account at a bank. And that's kind of crazy because only $250,000 is insured. And if that bank goes out of business, that's the most anybody's going to get. Sorry that you had $480,000 here at our bank, but you're only getting $250,000. We went bankrupt. That's it. And you could argue, well, wait, I had that at this branch, but the other money was at that branch. They're the same institution. It doesn't matter which branch. $250,000 per institution. And then, if the parent gets old, they put your name on the account in case something happens. And you don't have that way you won't have a problem to get your hands on the money. Let me do this again. Ready? 480K means 1,000. And now you, the parent's name's on the account, and they put your name on the account. And this happened to somebody. They said, oh, I'm getting old. They put their son's name on the account, or daughter, or whatever. If for some reason, now, this person has their own account, and it happens to have $45,000 in their own account. And it could be part in savings, it could be part in checking, it could be part in a certificate deposit. It's per person. All their accounts in their name added together at each financial institution is insured to $250,000. The financial institution goes bankrupt. Now here's the bad news. all of this money is not going to be covered. Now here's why. They don't know, they don't care what the background story is behind whose name's on which account, period. The rule is that if there's two names on that account, no matter what the story is, that account's looked at as half responsible for one person, half the other person. And they'll go, okay, this person, your parent, has $250,000 of insurance from FDIC. And half of this equals $240,000. Look at that. This parent is getting $240,000. Insurance covered it. You, because your parent put your name on there, they don't care whose money this really is. They look at it as being $240,000 is in your name. Even though it's your parents' money, not yours. Doesn't matter. Your name's on the account. It's insured under your name for half, $240,000. And you have an account with 45s in your name also at the same institution. Add 45 to that. Now you have the insurance is looking at it as $285,000. You're only getting $250,000. You just lost $35,000 because your parent put your name on their account without realizing now it's not all insured. And actually more is insured than when it was just in the parent's name, because only $250,000 out of 480 would have been insured. That they should never, nobody should ever have more than $250,000 at an institution, because the parent could have taken $240,000 of that money, go 2 doors down to the other credit union, they're like on every corner, or bank, open an account there, and now you're insured for another $250,000. That's all it takes. So if you have an account at, I'm trying to think of the big credit unions. There's Dordt Federal Credit Union in Genesee County, right? There's Financial Plus. There's the teachers one I can't think of the name of right now. There's all of them around Genesee County. And if you know, hopefully you remember this someday in life. But if for any reason a parent puts your name on it and there's more than $250,000 involved, just say, let's open another account at the next credit union 2 doors down so that all of it's insured and we're not taking any big risk. Because it can happen without you ever really see it coming. Credit union goes bankrupt. The one in Pontiac, is it Pontiac or Waterford, that went bankrupt just a couple of years ago because the executive financial person was stealing money from it over the years. This person down in Fenton, but he was the financial person for a Waterford credit union or something. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Remember that news story? Anybody from Fenton or down there? And this was big news because it added up to a couple million, I believe, that over the years. And just getting away with it until it finally got caught. And that credit union had no choice but to go bankrupt, and nobody saw it coming. And if anybody had more than $250,000 in that credit union for any reason, through all the different accounts, it would not have been insured. Only $250,000.
Let's say that my parents had a huge sum of money though, and they all put it in one institution.
Yep.
If they put all of my siblings and my names on it, then each person would be on
Yes.
the wrong to their.
Yeah.
So that way they probably could do it.
However many, no matter whose money it really is, if the insurance looks at it as being evenly accountable to however many names are on it. So if there are 3 names on it, it'd be a third, and third insured. So then it would be all covered, right? You know, but by putting different names on there, they have access to the account. So you got to have a very trusty relationship, knowing that, hey, my daughter's name's on there, and no, wow, 100,000 just disappeared. Wow, never saw that coming. I understand how insurance works. If you have a question in your future on a quiz, do we have a quiz left? Yeah, okay, that's right. On a quiz, I lost track. 'Cause, another class just had their last quiz last week, and I was thinking, wait a minute, you're going to have your last quiz coming up Monday, a week from today. If this were a question on a quiz, it's probably going to say something like, here's the financial situation. These 2 people have both their names, excuse me. Thank you. You know, these 2 different banks, there's this much here, both their names on it, this much here, both their names are on it. If these both banks go bankrupt, how much would not be covered by insurance? You got to be able to calculate, knowing the rule, $250 per person per financial institution, have the ability to calculate how much would not be insured, or how much is insured, or whatever the question may be. So you got to understand how it works. All right, where are we at? Certificate of deposits, I kind of already talked about it. Early withdrawal penalty. We're going to early withdrawal. Where's that at? It's not even on there. Oh, this formula on the slide. Oh, it's not even on this PowerPoint? Darn it. Okay. I don't see it on PowerPoint, but here we are right here. Certificate of deposit, bank or credit union. You said, here's my $1,000. You're committed to 12 months, let's say, and 6 months go by, and you go, oh my God, I need that money. I know I committed for 12 months, I need that money. I'm gonna break the contract early. Even though I'm committed to 12 months, and they say, fine, no problem, but there's a 3 months penalty. And you have to be able to calculate the 3 months penalty. So here's the certificate. It's paying 1% per year. And if you have to take the money out, it's a 3-month penalty. How much will be the penalty? You ready? Well, what I would do is say, I know how much it would make in a year, 1% of 1,000. Divided by 12, that's how much it would make in a month, times 3 would be the penalty. Everybody ready? $1,000 times the interest rate of 1%, which would be 0.01, times the amount of time of the penalty in the form as it relates to a year. Everybody hear that? So if the penalty is 3 months, I got to write this as it relates to a year. 3 months out of a year would be 3/12. 3 months out of 12. Or I could say 3 months is a quarter of a year, which would be 1/4 or 0.25. So this part right here called time. This is the rate, and this is P for principal, the amount you invested. The rate at which it's making per year, and time, how much time are we talking about based on a year? In this case, the penalty is 3 months, which is 1/4 of a year. So 1,000 times 1% is $10. Is that correct? $10 times 0.25, or 3 months out of 12 is the time of the penalty, is $2.50 penalty. Now, I got to check my math. I was doing that off the top of my head. I don't hear anybody telling me that's correct. $1,000, right on the screen, times 0.01, $10 in a whole year is all you make at 1% interest. Divided by, I'll do it this way, divided by 12, so that would be 83 cents a month, times 3 months penalty, $2.50. Just a different way of doing it. I divided by 12, then multiplied times 3, just so I could figure out per month, and then I knew it was 3 month penalty. That's why I times 3. Or I could have just multiplied it times 3/12, which is 0.25. There's the amount of the penalty. So there's that. All we have left now is compounding and inflation. Let's go to compounding. We're going to go, I like, instead of page, let me see what it has on slide 14. Yeah, we're going to slide 14 for a second, but I like the book example. Compounding. Interest on previous interest earned. That's what compounding is. Here's the, I like the effects of compounding on this example on page 121. Bottom of the page. Or it's near 121 if you have an older edition. Here's an example where $10,000 has been invested at 4%. Every one of these different investments are offering 4% interest, but there's 4 different compounding methods. This one compounds annually at the end of the year. This one compounds quarterly, every 3 months. This one compounds monthly, 12 times a year, and this one compounds daily. In 1 year, 4% interest on $10,000 is $400. Is that right? 4% interest? So you get $400 for your $10,000 at the end of the first year because it's compounded at the end of the first year. This one quarterly, you get 1/4 of the $400 after 3 months, and that 1/4, that $100 you just got, is earning interest as well as the $10,000 for the rest of the year. And then at the end of the next 3 months, you get another $100, maybe even $101, because that $100 you got from the previous 3 months is earning interest, interest on interest. So at the end of the year, you gained an extra $5 because of the compounding, interest on interest. Now we go to monthly. At the end of you get 1/12 of the $400 at the end of the first month, and now that's earning interest as well as your $10,000. The second month you'll get another little bit, and it's earning interest, and so you end up coming out $7 ahead compared to the first scenario because of it compounding monthly. Every month it puts a little more in the account, and now that's earning interest too. And then the daily you gain $8 compared to yearly, because at the end of every day, a few more pennies are being put into your account, and it's earning interest on interest. And so you come out ahead by $8 because of that. That's the effect compounding has. And I want to tell you, there's a lot of places that have, we compound continuously. They're saying every second, a fraction of a penny is being put in your account and earning interest in order to maximize the effect of compounding. And that one will pay more than the one that compounds daily or monthly or quarterly or yearly. And that's why a law passed in the late 60s that said any investment that you offer to people who live in the U.S., you have to publish the APY. It takes compounding into consideration so people can quickly compare apples to apples. You're looking at a certificate deposit for a year and it compounds daily at one place. You're looking at a certificate deposit and it compounds monthly at another place. They're both going to calculate the APY, and the one that compounds daily will have a slightly higher APY than the one that compounds monthly. And that's how you can make a clear decision. Look at the APY, not just the fact that it pays 4%. They have to. When they advertise an investment, they can tell what it pays, 4%, but they also have to advertise the APY so the average consumer can compare apples to apples. Hey, look at that one pays 4%. Well, that one pays 4%. Don't compare that. This APY is 4.1. This APY is 4.05. This one must be compounding more. So it has a higher APY. You want to go with that investment. So that's where these came about. And on loans, that's the same year they invented the APR, saying, look, if consumers are being offered loans through advertising, so they can compare apples to apples, you've got to include the APR. It takes into consideration how payments are done, because if one loan only has to be paid at the end of the year, and another loan has to be paid monthly, even though they're exact same interest rates, they're going to have different APRs, and it allows consumers to compare apples to apples if this is advertised on loans, and this is advertised on investments. And that's where that all came about, because of compounding. People were making bad decisions, and our Congress said, hey, we got to figure out a way for people to be able to not be fooled and know which ones are the better investments and the better loans. Last, how are we doing on time? 3 minutes. Inflation. Comparing your rate of return. Remember this calculation on this game? And this person made 10%. She's making 10.9% in, what's that, January, the half of January, February, and March that we're at right now. To make sure that you are, truly making money, you have to compare your rate of return to what inflation is, because right now inflation's at about 1.5%, maybe 2% a year, meaning whatever you spend money on, groceries, clothing, services, the prices for those things on average are going up about 2% a year. If all your money is only making 1% a year, you're not coming out ahead. Because everything you use that money on to buy is going up in price by 2% a year. So the money you're making on your money is not beating inflation. So even though your money may be safe and you're only making 1%, you're not making even enough to beat inflation. So in the big picture, you're losing money. And so a lot of investors always say, I gotta look for investments that are gonna beat inflation because I wanna at least make more than what the prices of everything I buy are going up in price. And that's where the whole comparison of beating inflation should be your goal when you're looking at investments, to beat inflation, to truly then be coming out ahead. Go ahead.
How do you know exactly what the inflation rate is?
You have to look at, a lot of people look at the published, it's published all over, but the true index that the government puts out is called the CPI. CPI index. That's how you do it. And I don't remember where I put it. We've only got a minute left. Boy, I think it's chapter 5. Let me see real quick if it's there. CPI, no. Remind me. I'm going to write myself a note. I'm going to show you. I have the CPI numbers. And you just take the number from a year ago, the number from last month, and see what percent difference it is. That's inflation. All right. Where's the sign-in sheet? Is anybody not signed in? Drop it off in your way out. Thank you. All right. We'll finish this on Wednesday. Have an in-class on Wednesday.
And then the quiz is on Monday, right?
And then the quiz is on Monday.